Welcome into the Birds of the Roundtable. Guys, I'm back. Missed the show over the last month of the season. My son was doing coach pitch, or actually not coach pitch. We were moving into kid pitch, summer league, and I told the guys I might miss a show or two, and then we had double headers every single Tuesday night. But excited to be back with you guys today. We are going to be breaking down Eagles training camp, talking the biggest winners and losers. I am your host, Shane Haff. You can give me a follow on Twitter at ShaneHaffNFL. Joined by the whole crew. We're all back together. Ryan Reese, give him a follow on Twitter at Philly Sports PSA. Ryan, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing fantastic. Glad to have you back. We missed you. We shouted you out many times, almost as if you were no longer with us. But it's glad that you're back. And we've maintained. Me and David really held down the fort, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, I know that David had to do a lot of hosting while I was gone, and so we do appreciate that. I'm giving David the night off tonight. So David, give him a follow on Twitter at PHL Eagle News. How are you doing tonight?
Doing good, man. Ready to finally talk about camp. It's been a grueling 16 weeks of coming up with content. Now it's a plethora of content to discuss, so it's finally going to be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we are, 10 days away from the first preseason game, which is just wild. We've almost made it. Also joined by Dibes. Give him a follow on Twitter at Mr. Crockpot. Dibes, how are you doing tonight?
I'm a little emotional. I just got done watching Interstellar for the first time since its release date, like 2014. And I have a 4-year-old daughter, and I am just emotionally spent. Let me know in the comment section if you have seen it with kids, because it hits so hard. I'm good, though.
All right. It's good to know. Good to know. Well, you guys let us know in the comments. Drop some comments. We're going to be doing some stock up, stock down based off the first few days of training camp here. And we'll revisit this over the coming weeks. So you guys let us know what you're thinking. But we're going to dive right in so we don't end up with a 2-hour show here. And we'll start off with the quarterback position. Everybody wants to know about quarterback. David, Jalen Hurts, what have you seen? What have you heard from training camp so far? Is he a stock up, stock down, or stock neutral so far?
He's a stock way up, in my opinion. He's looked great from everything everybody's posted. I finally get to go to 2 of the camps in the next 5 days, so I'll get to see some of this for myself. But from everything I've been told, he's looked really good. The deep balls he's thrown have been perfect. They are using a lot of motion, which is helping. He's got a whole new playbook. I don't know if it's 95% more that, like he said earlier in the season, but I am very high on him. Are we talking about all the quarterbacks?
Yeah. If you have some thoughts on some of the other guys, go ahead and throw them out there.
Pickett has looked good as well. He's definitely QB2. I don't think that's going to be disputed at this point. And I have literally heard zero about Tanner McKee. I don't even know if he's thrown a pass. I have seen nothing hardly online in regards to him, but they are very pleased with Kenny Pickett as well. But Hurts, they said his mobility is phenomenal as well. He looks like he did in camp in 2022, which would be a huge bonus going into the season because he was clearly hobbled for much of the year last season.
I remember it was equal parts being so hyped about Tanner McKee and being so starved for football that I made a preseason All-22 breakdown on Tanner McKee last year. And I cannot wait to be at that point in 2 weeks breaking down film for guys that we won't see again for another 2 years. But, that's where we are. Ryan, your thoughts on the quarterbacks?
Yeah, listen, David nailed it with the first 2. Hurts has certainly been better than advertised, I think, after kind of a little bit of a stumble last year in some regards, and coming into yet another offense and another offensive coordinator. It seems like usually that first week of camp is the offense takes a little time to kind of get ramped up, and it really doesn't seem to be the case. It seems like they're going against that defense and battling day in and day out, and one day the defense will win, but the other, the next the offense will win, and those are really good and promising signs for the offense, and that has a lot to do with Jalen Hurts being, mobile, accurate, and doing his thing. So couldn't be happier.
All right, Dibes, any thoughts you want to add in on the quarterbacks?
Real quick on Tanner McKee, I'm 99.9% sure he's not Clayton Thorson. For that reason alone, watching him during the preseason, I'd put him a stock up. Clayton Thorson, if you remember, was one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen, period. But going to Jalen Hurts, and that's what this is all about, he's healthy. And what his healthy legs means for this offense is just massive. I think the lesson learned last year is that the Eagles cannot be a pass-heavy team. There needs to be balance. There needs to be more horizontal within this offense, and I think the combination of Jalen Hurts and Kellen Moore and Saquon Barkley and the gravity that Barkley and Hurts are going to hold in the RPO game, getting these two in space, getting them into open field, quarterback draws, read options, delays, RPOs. It's going to be a lot of fun. I don't think we're going to see any of it during the preseason. Week 1 can't come soon enough, but stock way up.
Yeah, I mean, giving Jalen Hurts an actual offense makes it stock up easily. I can't wait to see him have something that's not a go ball as an answer to a cover 0 blitz. So, and to your point about Tanner McKee not being Clayton Thorson, we already knew that, Dibes. He actually made the 53-man roster after the Eagles spent a draft pick on him. So that's a massive improvement. I have no thoughts on Will Grier. He's not going to make the team. And I don't really have thoughts on Kenny Pickett either. It's not somebody that I've read a lot about. Obviously, in Oklahoma, I'm not going to the practices, but I'm really excited to see what the offense is going to look like. And I don't expect to see it in the preseason, but I'm excited to see what it's going to look like with Kellen Moore at the helm in week 1.
Yeah.
So, all right, let's flip over to, well, I guess we'll just leave Tanner McKee and Will Grier as neutral because we don't have a feeling either way. Let's bounce over to our next position. Let's talk about the running backs. Dibes, start us off here. Give me some of your thoughts about the running back room so far.
I'll go with 2 guys. Mainly, let's start off with Saquon Barkley, who looks just a pitch-perfect fit for that Eagles offense zone rushing attack. He looks every bit as we kind of theorized and projected it within this Kellen Moore offense. They're utilizing him in the receiving game. Again, the gravity that he's going to hold in this offense is going to open up so much just in that quick strike Jalen Hurts passing attack, whether it's taking the checkdowns, taking the screens, the bubble screens, all of that. And we finally have an offense that can hit you on just a multitude of levels. Like, for example, if the defense is going to run a lot of nickel or dime, Jalen Hurts can just hand it off to Saquon and take the 5 yards. If they're going to give him the check down, Jalen can just pass it to Saquon for the 5 yards. I feel like everything is there for Jalen Hurts to kind of get away from that hero ball mentality that we saw in 2023. And Saquon's going to be a huge part of that. Number 2, the guy I want to talk about is Will Shipley. Will Shipley has had some moments. Again, as we talked about on Party on Broad last night, I was not a big fan of his. I had other running backs graded higher at the time, but at this point, you gotta call it as it is. He is a pitch perfect fit for this Kellen Moore offense with his receiving. I want to see his pass protection in training in the preseason games. I think really RB2 will boil down to who is the better pass protector between those two. So I'm going to give Saquon and I'm going to give Will Shipley stock up.
Yeah, I've read some encouraging things about Will Shipley. But by the same token, I've heard really good things about Kenny Gainwell as well. And so I don't know about you guys. I still expect Kenny Gainwell to be that primary backup at running back. I would give Gainwell the stock up as well. I'm not super thrilled about it. But you mentioned the pass blocking, and that's a part of Will Shipley's game that's really poor. And so I expect there to be a role for Will Shipley, but I do still expect him to be the third guy out of the group there.
Especially if we see a lot of pistol this year, which we expect. 2 running backs on the field, like one guy running in motion, one guy being receiver, one guy's standing in there to pass protect. Like one of those two, whoever is the better pass protector is going to be on the field.
Yeah, absolutely. David, any thoughts on the running back position?
I echo the same sentiment you had about Kenny Gainwell. I have him as a stock up, even if it's just the way everybody perceives him, thinking that he wasn't going to get on the field, thinking that he wasn't going to be RB2, because I think he clearly is. I don't know what the numbers were today, but over the first couple practices, he has seen the ball almost as many times as Saquon has. He only had one less touch. So he's seen a lot of looks. He's had 6 catches in camp already, 6-7 catches, same as Barkley, and the rest of the other 3 running backs have only had 2 catches, at least prior to today. So I think his stock is really up. I think that they have a role for him, and also he's in a contract year, and there's no better year than to run someone in the ground than the year he's about to walk.
Absolutely. Ryan, are you on the Kenny Gainwell hype train?
I think you know the answer to that. I am not. Listen, I personally, I wouldn't put him stock down, but I'd put him stock neutral. Again, when it's bad when the highlight of what you're trying to talk about him is, he's a good pass protector. You're a running back. Like that's shouldn't be the first thing we talk about. Listen, I'm encouraged by what we're seeing with Will Shipley. Yes, I don't believe he's going to be ready to take over that number 2 spot. Probably not all season, but I do like him kind of maybe in that third role. I just would prefer a better back number 2, but unfortunately, I don't really have that option, and we're stuck with Kenny Gainwell for the time being. And it appears that the Eagles continue to love Gainwell, and personally, that still scares me a little bit. How they will most likely use him more than they need to, and when you have a great back like Saquon Barkley, use him.
We have a comment here real quick. Anthony says if the Eagles don't take the division by week 13, get rid of the players, get rid of the coaches. There's no way the Eagles can't destroy teams with all this talent. Oh my gosh. I'm not there. I'm not there, Anthony. I'm not
Week
there.
13, my Lord.
I'm not there. But Shane, do we hate on Kenny Gainwell too much in this city?
Probably. I think people are too out on Kenny Gainwell. I don't think he's a great player. I think he's a fine rotational piece. It was frustrating. I think most of it comes from frustrations last year that the ball would be handed to DeAndre Swift, and then you get down in the red zone and they would take him out and put in Gainwell, and it never seemed like anything good happened. So I think the hate for Kenny Gainwell is a bit much, but I understand from a fan perspective where it comes from. He's a guy that you want in your running back room as a running back too. You don't want him taking many carries from Saquon other than, for longevity reasons, but he's a good player to have in your running back room.
And unlike DeAndre Swift, Saquon's a true 3-down back.
Yeah.
They didn't have many choices but to take him off the field a lot of times because it was telling you it was a run. There was no play disguise with that because his pass protection was so bad. That will not be the case with Saquon Barkley.
True. And I would just like to say I have not liked Kenny Gainwell since well before last season. So
that's fair.
Can I throw this question to you guys real quick?
Sure.
I'm going to share my screen. What are your thoughts, and how much will Saquon be on the field in 2024? What percentage of the offensive snaps do you expect Barkley to be on the field? Any thoughts on this, guys?
I don't want to go first because I need to think for a second. So somebody else take it.
I feel like it's got to be at least 75. No? If not more?
I doubt that. I mean, last year Swift was at like 55%. And I think they're going to be – I think they will just
basically said that he was only good for 2/3 of those, downs, and whereas Barkley should be there on all 3 downs,
Mhm.
and you don't need to necessarily take him off other than just kind of change of pace, give him a little rest here and there. So to me, that tells me that, even if you're not going to hand him the ball or throw him the ball, you still should be able to be out there on 3rd downs. So
I think 69% is really high, even though that's the lowest option that there's up there. Um, I
Wow.
I don't know. I would say 65% is probably where I'm at. And I think that's a lot. I think 65% would be a lot on the field.
I'm trying to scroll through and look it up here, and I'm back to 2019 so far. And the Eagles do not have a running back that's had 60% of the offensive snaps all the
No,
way back
not a
to
chance.
2019.
No, they haven't had a 3-down back.
Yeah. So I don't think you're getting that high of a count. I think 65.
Well, okay. Well, what was Barkley's percentage last year with the Giants?
64%.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting.
Okay.
Which
Wow.
I think he missed a couple games last year, so that
He
eats into
did.
that. But
Oh, okay.
yeah, I would be pretty surprised if he gets into that 70 to 79% range. I think he's under 69% personally,
Agreed.
and I think that's smart. Like I don't think this is a guy you want to try to hand the ball, 30 times a game. You need to. Smart teams are going to pace that out, and they're going to spell him out. And I think the Eagles are going to do that. They've always liked a rotation. And now, did they like a rotation because they don't have a 3-down back, or, that's a good question. I guess we'll find out this year.
All right, so last year, the Eagles kept 4 running backs. Kendra Milton, Tyrion Davis-Price. Do any of those 2 have a chance to make the 53?
Not in my mind.
Yeah, I don't think either one of them are worthy of keeping at this point. Maybe Milton makes the practice squad or Price, but I doubt it.
For much of the year, they ran with 3 anyway and just kept elevating Penny if they needed him. I don't see a point in doing.
Who just retired today, by the way.
Yeah, that explains a lot.
It sure does.
I don't think I think either of those guys hits a practice squad just fine. So
Agreed.
with the log jam in the secondary and other places, I could see you keeping 3.
Ryan says, how are the new guys looking? Who is standing out? We're talking about it right now. We're talking about all of it.
Giants.
Yeah. Well, let's keep rolling on here. Let's go to the wide receiver room. And David, I'll throw it to you first here. What are your general impressions so far from the wide receivers?
A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith came ready to go. They already look like they're in season form. Both of them are stock up. Paris Campbell has been good, and I think he will be good. It's just a matter of health. It just comes down to if he stays healthy or not. From every report, John Ross has looked exceedingly fast, so I would say his stock is a little up as well. Covey, I know that they like him, and he's good in the slot, and he catches almost everything thrown his way, but I would keep him as neutral. And is that Smith at the end there?
Yeah,
that's
Nia
nice.
Smith.
He went into camp in spring with an injury, really didn't get to see much of him. And he's had, he's kind of in spring mode right now. So I wouldn't say stock down, but I would leave him as neutral as well. He hasn't shown a whole lot yet. They've actually shown more with Johnny Wilson. They're using him in a lot of formations for the run and using him kind of as a weapon like they did Stoll. For blocking thus far, which seems to be a good role for him. But yeah, I don't know. I guess they're going to keep 6 wide receivers, especially if they go with 3, and 3 running backs, and I would think that Covey is definitely going to be one of the 6. So Aeneas Smith and Johnny Wilson might be fighting for the final spot or phantom injury.
Yeah, I think Britton Covey definitely makes the roster. He did too well as a return man last year, but I don't think he's
too valuable.
Yeah, I don't think he's really in play as an actual wide receiver. But I would say big stock up to Johnny Wilson. He's been getting first team reps on some things. I know he had a rep today where he beat Keely Ringo, who we'll get to in a minute. But Keely Ringo's been taking a lot of first team reps. I don't know on Aeneas Smith. but Johnny Wilson needs to make the roster absolutely. And
Wow.
John Ross, I don't know. John Ross should look good. There's no pads on, but
Exactly.
we know what John Ross is. I don't need him on this football team. I'd rather have a rookie.
There's like a handful of guys that should look great without pads on this roster.
Yeah.
And he's one of them.
Yeah, and most of them have because they're not going against anything. But yeah.
Yeah, no, I got to disagree with Anaya Smith. I think stock down. Yes, he's been dealing with a little bit of injury early on, but he still hasn't, caught on. He's dropping passes. He's, in the return game, he's muffing punts. And honestly, he's had an opportunity to, really kind of solidify himself as a potential playmaker for this team. Because there's not a lot after the big two. And he really just hasn't, honestly. And everything that I keep reading on him is not been great. So I personally think his stock is down right now.
I agree. I'm between neutral and stock down because in a perfect world, I think Anaya Smith would, crush camp and open a lot of eyes and get that wide receiver 3 position. But that's probably not realistic. So I'm in between neutral and stock down.
We've got a question from Quentin here on YouTube asking if the return rule changes impact Covey's status.
No.
I don't think so because nothing changed on punt returns, which was his primary usage. He had 29 punt returns last year. He only had 1 kickoff return. So, I don't know. Maybe they use him more as to me, kick returning is a running back's game now because you're basically like they've set it up to be a run play. That's
I think
what
that's Shipley's role.
Yeah, that's what it seems like to me. It seems like, there's a big punt returning is way different, but kick returning really just seems like a direct snap rushing play now. So I think that's going to be a running back's game personally.
And Anaya Smith, from what I've read, has struggled in punt returns as well.
Right.
So
yeah, he has, and that's a thing, that I'm sure Covey is probably helping him to stand out in that way because I think Covey needs to give us a little bit more than just being able to, be above average at punt returns. Whereas if Anaya Smith can prove that he can be equally as good as Britton Covey in the return game, we know the upside there is with the wide receiver game as well. That personally means Covey's out. I just think, given the fact that we have so many other positions that are very deep and we may need to keep more people, you might want to have a wide receiver that can actually be a wide receiver and not just a returner.
Right. Yeah. Versatility has been the theme of Eagles training camp, being able to provide multiple roles on a defense, special teams, offense. I think Covey's one of the more interesting players in training camp. And what do we want to do with Anaya Smith? Neutral or stock down?
I leave him as neutral just because it's hard for me to give a stock down to a guy who's supposed to be the 5th or 6th receiver on the team anyway. But I'm not opposed to wherever you want to put him.
This could change in a week.
So. Well, right. That's the thing. That's hopefully we're moving him back up the next week. I think we're all rooting for him.
All right. Well, let's keep rolling along. Let's go to tight end now, where unfortunately the Eagles lost Ryan's favorite tight end with Jack Stoll going to the New York Giants. But Ryan, even though Jack Stoll's gone, how do you feel about this Eagles tight end room so far?
Yeah, well, listen, first I'd like to say I was like Dives watching Interstellar when I found out Jack Stoll was leaving. Now, listen, no. Listen, I am conflicted because on one hand, I'm very happy with Dallas Goedert. He's looked more than the part. He's making great catches. The chemistry with Hurts looks to be right there. It absolutely looks amazing. So he is stock up. Unfortunately, somebody like a CJ Uzomah, who, again, has experience playing in this league, starting in this league, we thought, hey, we got a vet here that can be tight end too. He has looked awful. He has not done anything. And quite frankly, I worry if he's even going to make the team at this point. I say stock way down. Calcaterra has actually looked a lot better than I had ever thought possible. He looks like he's gained a little muscle, and so I'd say his stock is up. And unfortunately, the rest of them haven't really heard much about either Albert O, which is, again, I think he's one of those guys, especially tight ends, where we have a guy where we think has all the talent in the world and just isn't doing anything with it. So, and then of course, Kellen McCastles, haven't really heard much on him either. So, but that's just me.
Yeah, I would say, the only one I have a strong opinion on here is that CJ Uzoma is stock down. I thought, tight end 2, he's going to lock that down, and he's been really bad. I've always thought Dallas Goedert's really good. I don't think my opinion about anybody else has really changed so far, but it would be a big stock down for CJ Uzoma for me.
Yeah.
To me, CJ Uzuma kind of falls into what we were just talking about a minute ago, because we're grading him before the pads come on. He's 6'6", 6'7", 265. His value kind of comes from blocking, which he has not been able to show at all until today. I'll be more curious to see how he looks over the next week than I care about what he did just standing there in plain clothes for the past four practices.
Yeah. Dibes, any thoughts on tight end before we move on to the trenches?
I wish they addressed this in the draft.
Agreed with that.
Excuse me, I'm fighting a head cold. You look at Ben Sinnott, who I'm excited to see. I think he's on the Commanders, and then you look at Theo Johnson, just a ridiculous athlete for the Giants. I just wish the Eagles made a move there in this draft, and I like the draft in a lot of ways. But man, you replace J.X. Hunt, who we'll be talking about in a second, who's looked really good at camp with a tight end. I just wish we had that young, developmental tight end with upside on this roster. I don't like this position at all, guys.
Yeah, it's very scary behind Dallas
sad.
Goedert.
Well, yeah, we were discussing this last night on Party on Broad that Dallas Goedert is unfortunately has been known to miss about 3 or 4 games a year. And how many times does the offense absolutely look lost while he's not there? And it's because we have nobody behind that Dallas Goedert who can actually catch passes. They are blockers. They are guys that just cannot be relied upon. And Jalen Hurts has shown that even, again, we made the perfect example of Jack Stoll could be wide open, have a football field of being wide open, and Jalen Hurts still wouldn't throw him the ball. So, again, he needs to be able to trust these people. And we didn't address it again. And I'm scared to death that if Dallas goes down again, the offense is going to absolutely fall apart.
Yep.
Yeah, Dallas Goedert has not appeared in every game since his rookie season. So
No.
he hasn't always missed a lot, but it's been something. Go ahead, David.
I'd give Calcaterra a stock up just because he has taken TE2. He's played 12 personnel. He's the guy every single snap. He's even taken 11 personnel snaps when Goddard, is out for whatever reason, when he's getting a break. He's looked great catching the ball, but again, his progression and how much he sees the field all will be determined by his ability to block. If he cannot block, you're going to see Uzuma whether he's catching balls or not, because he can do that, and it'll just go right back to the Stoll role.
Yeah.
Amen.
All right, let's get into the trenches here. We'll close out the offense with the offensive line.
I did interior and offensive tackle.
Okay, sounds good. David, you take it away for us here first.
What are we on, interior?
Yep.
Yeah.
Cam, stock up, definitely. Everyone's been extremely pleased with how he has played. Also, when you have two large guards like the Eagles do, it's gonna benefit him greatly. So Landon Dickerson, just I don't want to say stock up, neutral. I don't know. He's hasn't really played a whole lot. He had a lacerated toe, then he tweaked his ankle or knee or something today. Becton is definitely stock up. Keegan got hurt, probably down or neutral, however you want to do that. Steen getting hurt, definitely stock down. I think everybody thought it was just handing over his job, and that's clearly not what's going to happen. I think more people should follow the breadcrumbs that the Eagles lay all off season when they consistently talked about Mekhi Becton over and over and over and how he could end up being the guard. And a lot of people thought that was just talk, but the Eagles don't do a whole lot of that. So, and who was the last guy there? Sharping? Is that who that is?
Hennessy?
That's Matt Hennessy.
Matt Hennessy? Yeah, I have no opinion of him whatsoever. I don't even know that. They must not like what they've seen from their centers because they signed another one today. So
Yep.
I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard bad things about Hennessy, but they went and signed Nick Gates today, so
Yep.
I would assume that does not bode well for Tyler Hennessy.
Yeah.
I think the storyline of camp so far has been Mekhi Becton, who is clearly Jeff Stoutland's boy. He hasn't been perfect by any sense, but he clearly has an in with Stoutland, and he believes in him. And if Stoutland believes in him, I believe in him. So give me Mekhi Becton as stock way up. And
It'll be
by the way,
interesting.
Cam Jurgens is also one of the guys that, like, I'm not surprised looks great on paper or great without pads because he's an elite athlete. He's excellent at getting to the second level. When it comes to Cam Jurgens, I want to see him week 1, week 2, dealing with the disguise blitzes and pressures and the between the ears stuff with Cam
Pass
Jurgens.
pro. The whole thing will come down to pass pro because we know he can run block. We've seen him
Yes.
do that. But
Yeah, we all know he can. He's elite at getting to the second level.
Yeah.
He's ridiculous. But
I will
for
say
Cam-
that him
Go ahead.
snapping the ball well is a good sign because you never know. I mean, he played center in college, but it's been a while, and that if you can snap the ball without pads, you can snap it with pads. And so I'm glad there haven't been issues there. It'll be interesting if Becton becomes the right guard because Becton is like 4.5 inches and 60 pounds heavier than Cam Jurgens. So that'll be a big difference in mentality, physicality on the interior from what they had a year ago.
yeah,
Yep.
he'll be bookended by two giants on both sides, Landon Dickerson and
pretty
Becton,
much.
two of the larger guards in the league.
All right, well, let's get into the offensive tackles. And Ryan, what are your thoughts on the offensive tackles so far through camp?
Honestly, nothing's really been surprising. This isn't a position that we're necessarily concerned about. Obviously, Lane, Mailata, they're penciled in. They're fine. I'm not worried about them. Obviously, Lane, I think, had a bit of maybe a toe injury. Was out for a day or so. He's fine. But it's kind of the backup guys is trying to figure out who that main backup guy for if Johnson goes back goes down and nobody's really kind of jumped out unfortunately.
I disagree. I disagree.
Oh, okay.
Can I throw? I'm going to say Darian Kennard is one of the biggest surprises of training camp so far. And I want to put a way stock up.
Yeah, that's actually not bad because nobody thought he was really going to get even the time.
Right.
They get him on a futures deal, and it's paying off quickly.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. What's that in the middle? Is that Fred Johnson?
That's Fred Johnson.
Yeah, I would say if anything, his stock might be a little down. I keep hearing, every time I hear his name, it's usually blah 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 threw around Fred Johnson. So not what you want to hear from your tackles.
And Brett Toth's stock is so down, he wasn't pictured on either photo here.
He's the guy out, right? Like I imagine he's out.
He struggled at center, which is probably one of the bigger reasons that they went and grabbed another one.
Yeah.
We talk about tight end depth. Offensive tackle's another spot where the Eagles are in huge trouble if somebody goes down.
Yep.
Yep.
I mean, all reports say that Lane Johnson has been handling Bryce Huff. I don't know if that's like a surprise to anybody. I mean, Lane Johnson dominates everybody. So I'm going to keep him neutral.
Yeah. I
don't think Lane's stock can go up. Like,
Yeah, I
so
agree.
true.
he's the best right tackle in the NFL. There's nowhere for it to go. So
Yeah.
I keep him
point.
there.
Good point.
All right, well, let's kick it over to the defensive side of the ball then.
Yeah.
And let's start with our edge rushers. David, what are your thoughts on the edge rushers so far?
I'm curious to see how they all shake out. I mean, Fangio had honest comments that he made about Bryce Huff, saying that they hope he can be, take on a larger role, but right now he's not at that place, which to some may be concerning. But I mean, it's early in camp. I don't know how concerning it is, but I think he's going to be fine. Zach Bond, who I thought would be on the edge, has basically been a linebacker, so I don't guess we can include him.
He's on
Brandon
linebacker.
Graham, say what?
He's on linebacker.
Right, yeah. So you go Brandon Graham, he's looked good. Josh Sweat is so much in his head, he said he had to change his number just to feel better to be on the field. So I don't know. I mean, again, edge rushers, Nolan Smith, they said has looked great. He's been fast. But again, it's same position until they put on the pads today. It's really impossible to tell much of anything because you just get back field in these first 4 practices and they consider it a sack. So it's kind of hard to really get a whole lot of information from that.
Can I go next?
Yeah, go for it.
I want to put Nolan Smith's stock up. And he's a guy that is just monumental for the Eagles' edge position going forward, not just this year, but year 2, year 3 going forward. Like, it's by far their biggest position to address next year's draft, which is loaded at defensive line. I think Nolan Smith developing into whatever he is, whether it's a linebacker or an edge rusher, I'm very intrigued to see how Vic Fangio employs him and untaps his elite athleticism. We didn't really see it last year. He was mostly a straight-up edge rusher. Didn't get a lot of opportunities when he did. I thought he was good. I think this could be the year of Nolan Smith. So I'm going to go stock up Nolan Smith.
If his stock isn't up, their pass rush is in big trouble.
I agree. And Jalix Hunt making some noise. I have a question for you guys. Is Jalix Hunt the best coverage edge rusher in this group?
Yes.
Is that
the fact that he
scary or
used to
what?
be DB. I mean,
That's terrifying.
I mean, yeah, he did used to be a safety, so.
Right. I mean, he's got to be the best.
Yeah. I'm with you on Nolan Smith. A lot of people were talking about on Twitter the video of Nolan Smith and Brandon Graham running the drill. I don't know if you guys saw it, where they had to run around the pads or whatever, and people were questioning the fact that Brandon Graham was step for step with Nolan Smith, and is like, yeah, but the goal is to bend around the pads, and Brandon Graham just ran over the pads. So I don't think that really says anything other than Brandon Graham's a power rusher. He's not running around anything, even if it's the drill. But I'm excited to see what we get from Nolan Smith this year. Like, Nolan Smith and Bryce Huff need to combine to be a good pass rusher.
They have to. I'm low-key nervous about this position, Shane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll see. We will see for sure. So let's go to a position that I am not nervous about. And it's defensive tackle, where we got to start off with Jalen Carter, who's stock up. I mean, he's underrated, not just nationally. He's underrated by Eagles fans, I think. Like, he's legitimately one of the top interior defensive linemen in the entire NFL. And I spoke about this when I talked with BLG the other day that, Aaron Donald's gone. And so who's the best interior defensive lineman in the NFL? Like, I don't think he's on he's going to have to prove it to be on Chris Jones, Dexter Lawrence level for me, but he's in that tier 2, I think. And I think Eagles fans have been colored by, he fell off last year as the whole team fell apart, and there's the rookie wall, and there's the Matt Patricia is now my defensive coordinator, and he's a moron wall, and he hit all of that. I'm really excited to see what Jalen Carter does, and I know he had some reps where he bullied Mekhi Becton today, which is
That's
just
the fact that you can ragdoll a 6'7", 360+ pound human being blows my mind.
Yeah. So huge stock up for him. David, how do you feel about the defensive tackle room behind Jalen Carter?
I think Jordan Davis has looked good. I think his stock is up, nowhere near as high as Jalen Carter's, but I do think he's coming to camp doing well. They better hope that Milton Williams' stock is up. I haven't heard much of him. Again, I sound like a broken record with this, but we'll know a lot more of how he looks in the coming days, coming practices. And everyone else, I don't have much of a thought about. I mean, they're all fighting for DT3 or DT4 to barely get on the field. I hope Moro Ajomo finds a role on the team, but I really haven't heard much about him either so far.
Yeah, the hope is Moro Jomo and his run defense really pops during training preseason. They really need that presence, run defense presence. And then, like you said, David, like we need Milton Williams to really, just like some of these other guys we just mentioned, take another, maybe not just one level, but 2 levels up.
Absolutely.
Milton Williams is expected to take a lot of snaps in 2024. Not just as a pass rusher, but his inside-outside versatility is exactly what this Eagles team needs. And he's going to be relied on. And if he doesn't produce, there could be big problems.
That seems the common theme at every position we're talking about. They have elite athletes at about two elite athletes at every one of these spots, and then a bunch of question marks, which I guess every team does, but with Fletcher Cox leaving, Milton Williams is going to have to take on over 600 snaps this year if they're going to replace that with quality snaps, which is another reason I was a big proponent of taking a DT in the draft high. I thought it was, even though they do it every year, I thought it was a big need yet again.
I agree. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, well, I think Ajomo needs to kind of cut into some of those 600 snaps that were just given to Milton Williams, obviously, but Ajomo needs to be DT4, and he needs to, because again, he might be the guy that needs to eventually replace Milton Williams if we're not going to retain him after this year. So
they get paid if he plays the way they need him to, he's going to price himself right out of the Eagles.
Well, right, absolutely, and that's again even more important that Ajomo kind of steps up, and I'm more looking at Ajomo to kind of take that leap than I am Milton Williams, because Milton has shown it in flashes. We need Ajomo to show it in flashes and kind of get that ascend like Milton Williams did previous couple of years.
All right. Anybody have anything else on the defensive tackle group, or should we?
I'm waiting for Gabe Hall to have his moment. I'm hopeful he can be that like inside outside like wrecking ball. He's got great size, great athleticism. Great physicality. He's realistically a practice squad guy, like a year or 2 away, but he's definitely one to watch. I'm like Mustapher, Tui Pelotu, like those are bodies to me. I don't really care about those guys, but like David said, like this is a sneaky need for 2025 in the draft, and just building depth. The depth definitely has me concerned.
All right. Well, let's go to the linebacker position, where there's maybe a lot of room to be concerned. There's always a lot of room to be concerned. I will say this for the linebackers. At least there's somebody fast there this year, because last year the linebackers were bad and slow. This year they might be bad, but they're not going to be slow. Devin White, man. Whatever you want to say about his play recognition and other things, the guy can fly. So I know that David's boy, Zach Bond, has really been showing out. So I would say there's a big stock up for Zach Bond. And I would also probably say there's a pretty big stock down for Nakobe Dean, that he's not running that much with the ones, not looking that great, at least from what I've been hearing. Ryan, your thoughts on Nakobe Dean and anything else? I know linebackers are your thing, so talk to us about the linebackers.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't necessarily put Nakobe Dean stock down. I think when he has shown time with the ones, he's done fairly decent. Maybe not, again, not. I think we kind of have the expectations for this kid sky high. So I just I think he's level. He hasn't shown what I think we were wanting him to show, but again, I don't think he's looked terrible. Yes, I'll agree with you. Bond has looked good. I'll give a stock up to Devin White solely for being the adult in the room. The fact that he talked about having a text chain with Jalen and AJ Brown and the fact that they called it accountability means that he's already coming in and being a leader in a position that, let's be honest, doesn't have anybody to be that leader. So that I feel like is an important thing. And I'm going to say this about another person in another position later, that it might not just be what we show on the field. It's kind of what we say. It's how we carry ourselves. So that's why I'll put the stock up on White. I thought Trott's done pretty decent job. He's actually ran with the ones here and there. Again, he is a fifth rounder, but again, we're not expecting him to come out and be Patrick Willis, or his father for even. I think he's right where he needs to be. And the only other person I would say, Oren Burks, is stock down. Dude's looked like he doesn't even know what football is. So, other than that, I think the rest of them can kind of stay neutral.
All right, David, any reaction to that?
I agree with both Bond and White. I also agree with Dean. I think it's neutral. I would say Ben Van Sumeren's stock is up just because Oren Burke's stock is down. I think that he's got a legitimate chance to make this roster now. He's already excelled on special teams. I was pretty excited to see him. He's been running with the second team a lot. And as crazy as it might sound, Bond, White, Van Sumeren, and Dean might be four of the best linebackers the Eagles have had on a team, all playing together in the past 3 or 4 seasons. I actually almost like this linebacking core if Bond can play to the expectations he's been playing at. I think honestly, I think it's the best linebacking core they've assembled over the past 4 seasons. Not that that's saying a lot. Just saying.
That's a low bar. That's a low
It
bar.
is, but he's never going to invest in the position the way people who watched football back when Ryan did in the 80s and 90s. That's never going to be the way Howie Roseman and Jeff Lurie built this team.
That's like saying I'm the best host this show has seen in the last 4 weeks. I mean,
both comments are true. Both comments are true.
Wow, that's stuff.
I'm just kidding. I missed you guys.
Your stock is up.
My stock is up just by showing up. I ended my holdout and I showed up to camp and y'all just waived the fees and everybody wants my autograph. No, I'm just kidding. Let's keep rolling.
Right, no, I want to add just one
Go ahead.
thing quick. I think the surprise of training camp has been how much Vic Fangio has been blitzing his linebackers. When you look at Zach Bond and Devin White and Trot Jr. and even Nakobe Dean, like their ability to get to the pass rush, the quarterback and pass rush, that has been a big surprise. I just want to throw that out.
I actually am not that surprised by that. That's one of the. So I was talking a little bit back when they first brought in Fangio because I'd gone and looked at a lot of what he was doing in Miami last year, and that's something he really likes to do. He likes to rush a linebacker from depth and drop an edge out into coverage. So he's still got normal coverage, but he really tries to mess with the slide protections of the opposing offensive line. So that's where, like, I'm not a big Devin White guy. I think Devin White could have an interesting role. Zach Bond comes in. Like, there's a little bit of reading the tea leaves there, but I expect it's where I think Jalix Hunt makes sense as a pick, a guy that can bail out into coverage. So I think you're going to see that quite a bit this year.
So whereas, like, I'm excited to see how these guys rush the passer, who the hell covers among this group? Who the hell drops into coverage among this group?
Nobody, but how's that different from last year? Last year we had linebackers that couldn't cover or blitz. So
These guys are a lot faster. I mean, that'll help, but and it's what Shane was saying. I agree with all of that about the way Fangio used them in Miami, and that's one reason I was so bullish on Bond is because I think he was brought here to be in that Van Ginkel role. I really think you're going to see a lot of similarities there. He loves to disguise where the blitz is coming from, and I'm really looking forward to that. As far as coverage, I don't know. Dean can a little bit. I don't know if he's got healthy legs.
Dean was really good in coverage at Georgia.
He was.
That's a lot of projection.
Yeah, that's all they have. They don't have anything else.
Yeah. All right, let's keep going. Let's get into our cornerbacks, which cornerback is a really interesting group. Obviously Darius Slay is going to be locked in as a starter. It gets really interesting after that. So Cooper DeJean has the hamstring injury that's going to sideline him for 3 weeks. I think you got to put him stock down. It's not his fault, but it's valuable reps, and I think that pretty much ends his shot to be like a week 1 starter. It's also going to hurt, the versatility aspect of what they could do with him because he's going to miss a lot of that time. So that stinks to see, but at least this wasn't the Eagles' first-round pick they were relying on to fix things because they've got other pieces on the table. Keely Ringo has been getting a lot of run with the ones. He's got to be a stock up. I think he's played well. It is a shame that we didn't see Keely Ringo in week 4 when everybody except Sean Desai and later Matt Patricia knew James Bradbury was burnt toast, and we have more, he's had more experience. It's really a shame, but so Keely Ringo is in the mix. Isaiah Rodgers has got some run with the ones and has looked good. So I think you've got to give him stock up as well. And then Quinyon Mitchell, who I think they've started giving some looks in the slot. And I don't think it's necessary. Maybe this is wishful thinking. I don't think it's necessarily a reflection of his play being worse than expected, so much as it is that Keely Ringo and Isaiah Rodgers have been better than expected. So maybe Quinyon Mitchell stays neutral here. I don't know that he goes stock up. I would probably say Avonte Maddox is stock down just because of how well everybody else has performed. And I kind of think Avonte Maddox is going to lose his grip on that slot role because Quinyon Mitchell is going to take over. But Ryan, you were shaking your head. Do you disagree with that?
Oh yeah, I thought he's had a great camp. Honestly, he's looked like old Avonte. Pre all those awful injuries. So yeah, no, I think I think his whole group has honestly been the star of the show, so to speak, in training camp. I thought, again, Slay is doing what Slay does. He's neutral. And yeah, Q, again, we have lofty goals for him, but I still think he's doing a really good job. And the fact that, they're kind of trying to fit him in because Rodgers and Keely are doing so good. I think Maddox is right a smidge below where Rodgers and Keely are as far as, above expectations. So I think we had all kind of written off Maddox, and I don't think that's the case. I think he's here to battle, and I think this whole group is here to battle, and it just sucks that Cooper DeJean is, not able to get stock down. The first 2 I'd have neutral, and I'd have Maddox moving on up.
All right. David, what about your thoughts on the cornerback group as a whole?
I do think Quinyon Mitchell's stock is up. I think he's looked so good that they're trying to find a role for him, and that role could be slot corner. I think he has shown how much talent he has that they are trying him out anywhere just to get him on the field. I agree with both Keely and Isaiah. If I had to handicap that battle, I would probably lean towards Keely because they have control over him for longer. period of time. Isaiah Rodgers is on a 1-year deal. I think the fact that he came back and showed no sign of rust and was just able to get after it the way he has is absolutely incredible. I chose him as cornerback playing opposite Slay, you know, pre-camp, but Keely Ringo has really turned a lot of heads, man. He's looked really good. So he's been impressive. As far as Maddox, I tend to agree a little more with Shane. I don't think he's had a bad camp, but I don't think he's had a good camp either. I personally would just have him as neutral. I also think due to his veteran status, he could be somebody who's not initially on the 53-man roster because he can go to the practice squad. Nobody has to worry about him being poached. And they just have so much depth at corner / safety with these hybrid guys right now.
That feels wild to say after last season.
Yeah.
I know.
Dibes, anything you want to add in on the cornerbacks?
I mean, Quinion had a. No, I got to get some water. I'll be back.
Okay. All right. Well, before you go, kick us over to the safety slide, and we'll start talking about the safeties here.
Real quick, I will say I want to Robert checking in here with a few comments saying Mitchell starts no question on the outside. I think there's a lot of questions. We'll start on outside or slot, maybe. Kenny Gainwell looking better than Barkley. Q saying Gainwell's burner account just entered the chat. Yeah, he also said something about Gainwell above. And then finally, Dean not making the team. Ben Van is making it, no doubt.
I think there's room for both. I think Oren Burks is the likely man out if he doesn't get healthy really quick.
Agreed. Yeah. All right. Anyway, sorry. Wanted to just run through them real quick before we had a chance. So.
All right. Yeah, let's get into the safety position. Our last position here. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Reed Blankenship. Apparently now James Bradbury's a safety. Sidney Brown. Sidney Brown's still on the PUP list, but I saw a video of him running. BLG said earlier today that the expectation is not that he will start the year on the PUP list. If you start the year on the PUP list, you have to miss the first. It used to be 6. I think it's 4.
Is it 4 now?
Yeah, I think it's 4 now. But so BLG at least seems to think that Sidney Brown will be on the initial 53, not the PUP list, which would mean the Eagles think he'll be ready before those 4 weeks are up. So I would say stock up Sidney Brown just for the fact that he's recovering from that injury, and there seems to be optimism about him starting the year on the 53, even if he's not ready week 1. But David, what have been your thoughts about safeties? What are your thoughts about James Bradbury potentially making the transition here?
I don't like to say a whole lot of negative things about players. I love Bradbury as a person. I think his accountability for the way he played last season is super admirable. I do not necessarily believe he should be a safety just because I don't know how good of a tackler he is, but that would be my concern. Plus, I would probably just go with some of the other guys on here. I think I agree with you with Sidney Brown, stock up. I've seen him running as well. It's incredible. Reed, I haven't heard anything about one way or another. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson has been on everybody to practice harder, play harder. When they make a mistake, he's jumping on top of them. Even the rookies, I've seen some of the rookies tweet out about how hard he's been on them in a good way, not in a negative manner. So I would say his stock is up just for his leadership and mentoring. And I think we saw what happened to the safeties without him last year. It struggled big time. So I think just his attitude, his presence, and his leadership ability has been a huge improvement in that room.
All right. Ryan, your thoughts on the safety room?
Yeah. No, I
Start
agree
with Bradbury.
I will. Bradbury is an absolute stock up.
Oh my God.
Absolute stock up. I'm sorry. Listen, how you conduct yourself matters to me. And
he's the best at that.
He got bombarded about his play, and he came out and he admitted, yeah, you know what? I didn't play great last year. But I'm the one who came up and said, hey, what about trying me at safety? Because he saw that obviously, and he knew that they were going to go out and go after corner in the draft, and they did. And he saw what this roster looks like, and he just wants to help the team. And
He wants to make the team.
Sure, and who doesn't? But I'm sorry, he answered it like a man. He answered it like an adult, and we need more of that. We need more people to have accountability, and that means something to me on this team that didn't have a lot of accountability towards the end of last year. So that's why he's stuck up for me. It may change by next week when he's out there and he's he may not be living up to the standards, but for right now, he has to be stuck up in my eyes.
Yeah, well said. Well said. Dibes, anything you want to kick in on the defensive backs here?
I mean, you look at the safety position. They kept 4 on the initial 53. Outside of CJ and Reed, like, I'm concerned. I'm concerned about the safety spot. What's up, Justin Simmons? Bring him in. Sidney Brown cannot get on the field soon enough. This is a position that's lacking with CJ Gardner-Johnson's injury history. I know he's been flying around camp. I'm really happy about that. But at the end of the day, like, this is another position in Vic Fangio's defense that really needs some love.
Also, interesting thought experiment, but the Eagles are really deep at corner and really thin at safety. And we talk about James Bradbury switching positions, but Avonte Maddox is a rookie, played free safety for the Eagles. Had no background doing it in college and came in and played. I thought he did really well as a rookie. So that's another one that maybe that's a way that you help him make the roster and kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah, I've heard he's played a little safety so far. Not a lot, but a little bit.
A name to watch during the preseason is Mekhi Garner over these next few weeks. He's a guy that's was a corner, shifted to safety during last season. I'm interested to see him get some opportunities at safety during the preseason games. Keep an eye out for Mekhi Garner.
I like Tristan McCullum as well. I mean, I'm curious to see what he looks like as well. Who's the other one that they had? Andre Sam?
Sam, he's a rookie, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is about going to do it here for our stock up, stock down through training camp. Like David said, he's going to be out there next week. He's going to get to watch a little bit of it in person, so can bring us some firsthand accounts next week. We'll come back. We'll talk about this, and that's the last week that we have not talking about football because the Eagles open up the preseason. I believe it's August 8th, and so we'll be talking preseason takeaways 2 weeks from now, which just feels crazy to say. But before we get out of here, we'll throw it around the horn here. Ryan, I'll throw it to you first. Final thoughts. Plug your stuff. The floor is yours.
Yeah, the first week of training camp is always a difficult one. Usually the defense looks miles ahead of an offense. And that's for many different reasons. Especially it's a brand new offense and defensively, just basically telling the guys to kind of go, get out there and get after it. But the offense has looked really good and has been battling this defense neck and neck, seems like most days. And that's a very, very encouraging sign that this offense has a very good potential to be one of the better offenses in the NFL. So that being said, kind of excited to kind of see where, people kind of go on this list as we go along. Other than that, you can normally find me on EOP Mondays, 6:00 football smack talk show, 9:00 party on Broad, Best Eagles show every Tuesday at 8:00 Birds of the Roundtable, and then Sunday, college football party on Broad with Dibes, where we're just kind of going over NFL Eagles prospects and college football and a lot more than that. So.
All right. Be sure you check out Ryan's stuff. Great follow on Twitter at Philly Sports PSA. David, what about you? You got any written work coming out? What's going on for you? Plug your stuff.
Yeah, I agree with what Mr. Sandman just put about in regards to James Bradbury. And doing this exercise, one of the things, sticking with that position at corner, I mean, we didn't even mention Josh Jobe, Perry Nicholson, or Sean Stevens, Tyler Hall. That is
Eli Ricks.
Yeah, Eli Ricks. That is how deep, and he's looked good. Zach McPherson. I mean, that is how deep that position is. I mean, there's 5, 6 guys we did not even mention, which is just crazy. Which is another reason why I find it so hard for, Bradbury and a lot of these other guys that to make the roster. It is just so much youth infused at this position. It's just unbelievable. So I don't know. That was my biggest takeaway when I was doing this today was there's no way we were going to be able to discuss everyone because there are just so many players who are actually in play right now. It's just really good. Yeah, I hope it works out for Bradbury too. I think he's a great, like I said, he's great professional. The 2022 season he gave the Eagles was unbelievable. Outside of one holding penalty that he probably got away with all game, but they wanted to call it with 2 minutes left. But yeah. So you can follow everything I do at PHL Eagle News. I have a fantasy piece out today, the top 5 Eagles you should draft for your fantasy team.
Nice.
I got something coming out with Cam Jurgens tomorrow or the next day. I don't know which day they're releasing it, but you can find everything on my X handle at PHL Eagle News.
All right. Be sure you're following David and all his written work. Dibes, what about you? What do you got going on?
You can find me drinking tea.
And watching Interstellar.
And crying and watching Interstellar.
Crying. My throat is giving out right now. This is like my 5th show in the last 2 days. So if like Ryan said, he plugged it all. So thank you everyone for watching. I'm excited to take these next 6 days off until Sunday's show, and you'll find me just drinking water and trying to get better. Thank you.
All right. So send Dibes some tea, some honey, some homeopathic remedies. You can DM him on Twitter at Mr. Crockpot. You can check out my stuff at Shane Half NFL on Twitter. Be sure you are subscribed to the Eagles Pinpool Network wherever you stream your podcast. This is one of 6 shows that will be on the feed each week as we hit in the regular season. We've had 3 weekly shows. We just got the 4th one up and running. And then the draft show will be coming in a few weeks. Post-game shows will be coming in a couple weeks. And we'll have 6 shows a week for you guys. So make sure you're following that. Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Leave us 5-star ratings and reviews. That really helps us out. Every download counts. So we appreciate you guys for tuning in live. Go subscribe to the feed as well. And we'll catch you guys back here next week for another episode of Birds of the Roundtable. Go Birds.